Hey everybody, more Pagoo, Chapter 6. A starfish and a few barnacles. A starfish and a few barnacles. As Pagoo lay in the Mussel Canyon, tiny creatures came crawling from cracks and crannies. The rowdy hermit boxers had sent them zipping into holes, and Pagoo's restless house hunting had kept them there. But this naked little hermit was really harmless. How could so many of them live among mussel mooring lines where even tiny Pagoo couldn't crowd in? Crabs smaller than young Pagoo eyed him from the matted growth. All sorts of wiggly worms and jointed beans came helter and skelter on fluttering fringes of legs. Flatworms with no legs at all flowed past Pagoo like thin blobs of molasses dripping off a spoon. Pagoo rolled to his feet, found a long, fat mussel leaning out from the big rock like a springboard, walked the bulging shoal to its end, and peered over. This rocky place, this mussel ridge, sloped down and down before landing into watery dimness. Crouched like a polka dot with legs, Pagoo felt this 10-foot drop was just too deep. As a floating baby, he had drifted over mile-deep places, but of course he couldn't remember. Now he was jittery. Somehow he wouldn't want to find a shell home way down there. Strange shape moved in this deep hole. Even now, something was climbing the rock, gliding ever so slowly up from the deep shadows. A purple starfish with 5 arms. One arm began to lift its tip, pointing towards Pagoo, and old pal said, "He's too slow to catch you," but Pagoo didn't want to wait for more. He scuttled backwards down the springboard, stumbled over the byssus anchor cords, and landed once more in a canyon. He righted himself and ran. Skittering past more mussels, he bumped into the bouncy stalk of a goose barnacle. This animal's top part grew bony plates like flat teeth plastered to its rubbery sides. The toothy look didn't frighten Pagoo, but, well, he saw no chance of a home in a goose barnacle. He walked away, keeping an eye on the starfish. The starfish glided on tube feet like tiny soda straws. Many of them stretched, took a suction grip, and pulled the starfish along. The purple animal reached the mussel springboard, felt around carefully, and slowly straddled the tight crack where the hook doors met. 3 of its arms fastened their tube feet to one shell. The last 2 arms clutched the other. So this thing was after mussels, not Pagoo. Pagoo left the goose barnacle with their rubbery stalks and came to the hard shell of a red barnacle, stuck tight to the rock. This animal's inch-high home looked like an Indian teepee stretching high above Pagoo. Nearby were other kinds of acorn barnacles, but the red barnacle made an Indian village complete with a haze that looked something like smoke swirling from the teepee tops. "Don't let the haze fool you," old pal said. "It's just legs, you see. Barnacles are your own distant relatives. That is, they are all crustaceans. Each barnacle builds a shell house around himself. As he grows, he molts and kicks the old skin out the door of his shell. He stands on his head and rakes food down to his mouth with feathery legs." Could Pagoo scare a barnacle out of his red teepee and take over? Old pal said no, but Pagoo was already climbing the shell like a farm boy on the ladder of a concrete silo. At the jagged top, he peeked inside, and, well, old pal was right. Though it could twist a little bit inside its teepee, that barnacle was stuck by the back of its neck to the teepee's concrete floor. How sensitive it was. It hauled down its fuzzy legs right past Pagoo's face, snapped its double-action door shut, and would not open to visitors. While he was up so high, Pagoo swung both eyes again toward the starfish. Its tube feet, gripping the mussel's doors, were pulling. Great strained bulges, the purple arms swelling the starfish like a fantastic tent above the shellfish. Its pulling power could lift 100 pounds. The hidden muscles of the mussel held fast. No crack appeared between the doors as yet, but the star's strength and there's the starfish up there pulling the mussel apart. Could outlast shellfish strength. Hour after hour it could cling there, two bulging arms steadily tugging at one door, three arms hauling and straining at the other. Pagoo climbed down from his barnacle perch, so barnacles were relatives. Crusty old things, stuck tight, never going places like Pagoo. As though disgusted, Pagoo kicked at the teepee. He did not remember his surface days and millions of barnacle babies among the plankton. Like Pagoo, they passed through the first two stages of crustaceans and stopped there. They didn't go on to change into shrimps, lobsters, or crabs. They dropped towards the sea bottom, becoming what they were supposed to be all the time, barnacles. Making mortar from lime in the water, they cemented themselves to rocks, wood, shells, or anything handy, even other barnacles. They built hard shells, stuck up jointed legs, and kicked their food down. Of course, Pagoo was restless, hunting a shell, and like feathery floating barnacle, he could use his legs for traveling. But he had rubbed feelers with barnacle babies who would travel where he could never go, settle on the backs of sea turtles. Some kinds would live in tropic waters. Whales would carry other kinds to Arctic or Antarctic seas. Still others, hugging wooden boat hulls and steel ship bottoms, would prowl the world's oceans, living well on sea soup all the way. Their crusty boat travelers never would understand that the masses of their stony houses added tons of weight to ships, dragging down their speed. Peaceful barnacle colonies caused much anger among sea captains. It cost a lot to scrape the ship's bottom foul with barnacles when it finally drags into home port. Pagoo had his eyes on a heap of pink barnacles built up like a fairy castle, but the very top where mere bottoms of one of them stuck to the one below it. Wasn't about the size for Pagoo. From where he stood on Mussel Ridge, it looked vacant, empty, and he climbed towards it. Meanwhile, the starfish was winning its tug-of-war with the mussel, and the hard back doors were slowly opening. Pagoo, Chapter 6.